All right, guys. Welcome to week 3. We're going to start tonight with a little bit of information for you, just to give you a heads up on what's happening. Um, and just so you know, since we changed books for the start of this class, we are still building the course. So everything that you're seeing in my courses is technically still under construction. The grade book is also being built, so don't don't get too uptight if you see some funky numbers in the grade book or anything like that. We're aware of it and we're working. Um, you guys, if you try to, I will caution you not to work ahead too many weeks in advance, because we're not that far ahead of you with the construction of this course. So bear with us as we're building, and we're working hard to stay ahead of you. Okay. Um, there is no lab this week, so we just have the two online sessions, and you guys are here tonight. So there'll be one in the morning for everybody else, and that's it for the week. This is the last week of no labs, so enjoy it. Um, it'll go by quick. You do need to be aware that next week, when you come to your lab next week, you have your first module exam. So that will be module exam 1, which will cover the first 6 chapters of the book. So be prepared for module exam 1 next week at your lab times. Tonight starts module 2, so we will be covering 2 chapters tonight. That'll be chapters 7 and 8, which will be talking about medical terminology and the human body. So medical terminology we'll get through. The human body is going to take us about 14 hours. So we'll have about, maybe an hour and a half to discuss it. We'll probably need about 14. So that'll leave quite a bit of work for you guys to do on your own. Is there any issues or any questions before we get going that anybody has that we need to discuss? Anybody? Anybody? No issues? Everybody's good? Everybody's working, and everybody understands. Nobody's got any problems. That's good. That means this stuff is working, so that's fantastic. If you do think of any questions along the way, you can throw them up on the chat, and if you want everybody to see them, or you can select who you want to see them, and we'll deal with them as we're going along. All right. So we don't have any questions or issues to deal with. We'll get going into the lessons for tonight. Chapter 7 starts us off with medical terminology. So this is the chapter that teaches you how to assemble or break down medical terms. They have the prefixes, the root words, the suffixes, and you guys know that everything in the medical world has at least 2 names. So there's usually a common name, and then there's a medical term for it. So everything that we discuss will come to you with at least 2 names. And this chapter will explain to you how to get those roots and prefixes and suffixes, and they can teach you how to kind of break a word down and figure it out if you need to. The good part about our book, this book that we've switched to, is that it has a lot of good charts in it, and this chapter comes with a ton of charts. So I strongly encourage you to get into this chapter, look at these charts, and see how they have the prefixes, suffixes, and the root words that have the meanings. They have the spellings for them, all of those things that can help you. In addition, they also deal with the anatomical locations on the body. So in this section, we'll be talking about the locations and how we describe things. You know, a lot of times we refer to something as distal or proximal. We can refer to things as medial or lateral. So those types of things are discussed here in this chapter, and quite specifically, if you have your book available to you, quite specifically, it's on page 135 in your book. They've got a nice diagram that'll show you uh, all of those references to positions and what they mean. So, just a refresher: anterior and posterior. Um, Anterior would be the front of the body, and posterior would be the back of the body. Then you have inferior and superior, inferior being lower, superior being higher. Um, Medial and lateral. Medial is more to the midline of the body. Lateral would be to your outsides. Distal and proximal. Distal farther away, proximal closer to the middle, so closer to the body. So distal and proximal we use in the limbs. So a distal thing would be down towards the hand or towards the feet. Proximal up closer to the trunk of the body. So there's a good diagram there, and if you flip a couple pages, you'll also see some more diagrams and planes. We divide the body in three ways. We cut it in half. So we'll cut it in half, top and bottom. We will cut it in half, front and back, and then we will cut it in half, side to side. So three different planes that we use, three different ways of looking at the body and dividing it up. And you can see those on 136 in your book. You'll see those three planes. There's a nice figure there, and it'll show you the fact that, again, it has two names. Each plane, there's a transverse plane or a horizontal plane, which divides the body top and bottom. And then you have the frontal plane or the coronal plane, which would divide the body front and back. So, but there's three of those there. And there's also a nice diagram that divides the trunk of the body and the spinal column. The best part about this chapter, if you guys are following through the book, starts on 138. There's nothing but tables, and the tables are divided by body systems. So this is a great reference tool for you guys, and I'm sure it will come in handy as you're studying. But there are 4 pages of tables that start on 138, and they are divided by systems, and they give you terms and meanings. They give you commonly accepted abbreviations. Abbreviations are a real touchy subject because everybody's abbreviations are not necessarily the same. So we want to be sure that if you are going to abbreviate things, that you're using an approved abbreviation. The Office of EMS for the state of North Carolina has an approved abbreviation list on their website. If you want to take a look at that, then that'll help you with some of your abbreviations. And this list of abbreviations looks fairly standard. So I do recognize quite a few that are on there, and it looks great. So you could reference this as well as a fairly accepted list of abbreviations.
Are you expecting us to know the abbreviations, or are they just a good reference to have?
They're a good reference to have, especially from the fact of if you're getting doctor's orders, if you're when you're transporting a patient out of the ER maybe to another facility, if you get some doctor's orders, you may see some of this stuff. So it would be a good bit of information for you to know and understand. As far as testing goes, I I don't believe that you would have to have this list memorized or anything like that.
Okay.
So these charts, they also give you some abbreviations for patient information, common complaints, the list, different diagnoses. The list just goes on and on. So these are great charts. One of the reasons why we chose this book was for the information in it and the way it was presented. So we reviewed it and we liked it. So hopefully this will come in handy to you and be useful as you guys are reading and studying. It goes into a medication list, different abbreviations for those, anatomical landmarks. You'll see those, and you may already be using a lot of these in your patient care reports that you're writing now. I'm sure all of these are not new to you, so you may already be using some of these. So here's a question for you guys. What is the advantage of using these medical terms when you're writing your patient care reports?
It's very straightforward and not ambiguous. It's standard for most or all medical professionals to know.
Yes. Anybody else have an advantage to this? If you're using these words correctly, you have an understanding of their meanings, and you're using them correctly, you should be able to draw a pretty clear picture of where problems are, where issues, pain, injuries, those types of things, where you find them, and where they are. So if you can use these terms correctly, effectively, that then the person reading your report should be able to follow along the body and know exactly where you're your injury is or where your complaint is. So let's just take a minute real quick and talk about some of these word parts and draw a better understanding. The most frequent probably word parts that we use are Brady and tacky. And I'm sure you guys are aware Brady means slow and tacky means fast. But some of these other parts, if we were talking about the heart, what is the root part of the root word that we would be using talking about the heart?
Cardi.
Cardi? Cardi or cardio
Yeah.
refers to the heart. And if we were talking about, does anybody know what the ending is that talks about the study of something? This would be a suffix.
Ology.
Ology. So if you see the ending on a word that's ology, that means the study of something. So if we were studying the heart, it would be cardiology. And that's how we put these words together. Anybody know the root word for kidneys or renal?
Yeah. Renal.
Nobody has that one?
It's renal, right?
Renal?
No, the root word.
Oh, okay.
What's the root word for renal or kidneys?
Gen? Gen?
Who?
Gen? Gen?
No.
No? Shit. Where
Is it nephro?
There you go.
Nephro.
Neph or nephro. So the specialists that deal with the renal system are nephrologists. Very good. What about digestion? What's the root for that?
Cliff.
Yes.
Demetria just texted me. I don't know how she got my phone number, but she's been waiting since 6 to log into class. Is there a problem or is she not showing?
Everybody's in.
Okay, so she's not showing as standby.
Okay, I see you now.
Hey.
I've been waiting since 6. I'm sorry, y'all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm on mute. I've been waiting.
Okay. We're glad you're
All right,
here.
I'm muting.
Okay, so we're back to digestion. And does anybody know what's the root for digestion?
Is it gastro?
Gastro. Yes. That would be the stomach and the intestines and the digestion system overall. Okay, so what if you saw a root word that was path or patho, what would that mean?
Disease.
Disease? Yes. So then what is pathology?
The study of diseases.
Yes. So this is how we take these words, these pieces of words, and put them together. So when you see those medical terms that are about 27 letters long, and don't freak out about them, break them down into prefixes, root words, and suffixes, and you can work to figure out. Even if you don't know exactly, you can work to figure out at least, what we're talking about, what part of the body we're talking about, or what system we're talking about, or something. You can get some meaning as to where that word is going or what its meaning is. This list of root words on page 132, that's the most common. It gives you about, 10 or 12 of them. And those do seem to be very common. Then you have a very lengthy list of prefixes and suffixes, which will help you with all of the specific meanings of the word. So once you have that, you can work to figure out those other things. Does anybody have any specific questions about medical terminology? Is there a prefix or suffix or root word that you have issues with or don't understand, or anything in particular?
It's all pretty straightforward, just definitions, really, memorization.
It is. It's going to come with memorization and use, and repetition is going to be the big thing with this. So the more you go over the list, the more you use the words, the more you break down those words when you see them, the more this will come into focus for you, and it'll help you understand what's going on. Okay. If we don't have any questions about medical terminology, we'll move along into chapter 8, which is the human body. And this is a beast. I won't lie to you. This chapter, if you haven't already read it, it's about 50 plus pages in the book. And it covers everything from elements, atoms, electrons, all the way up through every system that the body has, and a breakdown of the entire body. So this is a beast. You're going to need to spend some time on it. And if you have any questions with it, you can bring those to your lab session next week. We'll hit the highlights for you tonight. If you have any specific questions tonight, we'll get those answered. And if not, then as you get through it in the coming week, then whatever comes up, you can bring that to your lab session, and we'll straighten it out for you there. Okay. Let's start by talking about homeostasis. This is the body's goal. It uses every system that it has to maintain a level of homeostasis. And when we say homeostasis, what do we mean? Can somebody give me an explanation of that?
Balance,
Balance?
balance of all the systems.
Okay. Does anybody want to add to that?
Regulation, temperature control.
You could say that it's like the physiologic normal.
Okay. So we talk a lot in the medical world about baselines, and that is the body's goal, the body's norm, the body's baseline. Homeostasis is what the body is trying to achieve, and it wants to stay there as much as possible. So it will take all of its systems and it will use them. If something falls out of that normal range, if one body system falls out of that normal range, it will use other systems and increase work in other systems to offset as much as it can, and maintain that norm. So the goal is homeostasis, and you'll hear us talk about this quite a bit, especially as we go through this chapter. And when we get into the shock chapter, we start talking about different types of shock. It'll get, that is when the body is seriously out of alignment, and it falls out of that level of homeostasis. So that is a item for you to know and understand and recognize. Now, in the body, we talk about acids and bases a lot, and in the acid base world, if you think back to high school biology and chemistry, the acid base scale runs from 0 to 14. And acids are on the low end, bases are on the high end, and neutral is 7. So for the human body, that homeostasis, does anybody know where the range is for homeostasis in the human body on that scale?
7.35 to 7.45.
That is correct. So 7.35 to 7.45 on a scale of 0 to 14 is a very narrow margin. That range is not wide, it's 1/10, and that is the homeostasis range. So as long as the body's pH stays between 7.35 and 7.45, in theory, everything should be working pretty good. If you guys don't know and understand, this is where your normal range of capnography comes from. So when you hook capnography up to your patients and you want to get a capnography number, then what's our normal capnography range?
35 to 45.
35 to 45. So that's where those numbers come from, and that's how they correlate. The 35 to 45 in our capnography reading correlates to the body's pH of 7.35 to 7.45. So it's just on a slightly different scale, but it's following along those same numbers. So that's how those numbers correlate, and that's what they mean if you were ever wondering or interested. So we'll draw that picture for you. So we have homeostasis at 7.35 to 7.45, and we have normal capnography 35 to 45. So if the body drops below 7.35 and your breathing, your capnography reading drops below 35, then what do we consider the body to be, or the breathing to be?
Acidotic.
Acidotic. And if it goes above 4.5 or 0.45 or 4.5, then it becomes
Alkalitic.
yes. So as you make your way through this chapter, you'll start to come into a point where the book is going to start talking about all of the bones of the body, and they'll break them down by groups, anatomical location groups, and you'll see those. Remember that there's how many bones in the body?
206.
206. So, Mark, you will need to recite those at next week's lab.
All right, I'll do my best to memorize them.
And then from there it goes system by system. So let's talk a little bit system by system of the body. The outside first thing we see, which system is that?
The skin.
Okay. And what is the medical term for the skin system?
Derma.
Epidermal.
Which system is that?
The integumentary system.
There you go, the 25-cent word. So it is the largest organ in the body. The skin they consider an organ, and it is the largest in the body. It's also the first line of defense for the body. because it seals the body up and protects it, keeps all of the nasty things of the world out in most cases. What else does the skin do besides offer that protection?
Regulates temperature.
Regulates temperature. Absolutely. Those are probably going to be your two biggest functions of the skin, protection and temperature regulation. Does anybody have any other functions for it? I think those are the biggest two. So how does it regulate temperature? Someone give me a quick explanation.
Shivers to tell you you're cold and sweats when you're too hot.
Okay.
Um,
In the most simplest of terms, that is it. If your body is too hot, then your skin will open the sweat glands and let that heat out. And if your body is too cold, then your skin will constrict, contract, and start to shiver to generate heat. So those are the simple explanations of it. Absolutely. How many layers of skin do you have?
3.
3.
3. All right. Good deal. When we talk about breathing, what system are we looking at when we talk about breathing?
Respiratory.
Respiratory. So again, in simple terms, how does the respiratory system work?
It obtains the oxygen needed for the cellular metabolism and eliminates carbon dioxide produced by the cellular metabolism.
And what drives our breathing? Do y'all know?
The lungs.
Okay, which gas drives our breathing?
Oh, carbon dioxide or oxygen?
Which one?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide? Does everybody agree with that carbon dioxide drives our respiratory system and our breathing?
Yeah.
The exchange of them.
So the gas exchange happens where?
In the lungs.
Okay, what part of the lungs?
Is it the alveoli? Or, well, how do you say that word?
Alveoli.
Those little things.
Those little grape things, right?
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Alveoli.
Yeah. So that's where the carbon dioxide and the oxygen are switching places in the vessels, and then the inhale and exhale is moving the air, moving those gases in and out of the body. From there, once that gas exchange happens, how does the oxygen move through the body?
In the blood.
Okay.
On the red blood cells.
Red blood cells?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, what system is moving that?
Circulatory.
Cardiovascular.
All right. And everybody knows and can explain how blood moves through the heart correctly?
Somewhat.
Somewhat. All right. Somebody take a stab at it.
Mm.
We're gonna get blood through the heart.
So the superior and inferior vena cava drain into the right atrium, and then when the right atrium contracts, the blood goes to the right ventricle, and then when the right ventricle contracts, it goes through the pulmonary arteries to the lungs, and then from the lungs it goes to the left atrium, and then when that contracts it goes to the left ventricle, and then when that contracts it goes to the entire rest of the body.
Okay, that's pretty good flow. What each time the heart contracts, what keeps blood from backing up?
The valves.
Okay.
Aortic valve.
So there's
And
valves.
the mitral valve.
Yeah, there's valves between each chamber of the heart.
Tricuspid.
And there's valves between the heart chambers and the vessels. So when there's between contractions, that's what keeps blood moving in one direction. Because we want it moving in one direction. We don't want it backing up. So that's the way that happens. So what are some issues with the heart and the circulatory system? What if people are experiencing like extremity edema? What kind of issue are they having?
Circulatory issue.
What kind specifically?
Congestive heart
Congestive
failure.
heart failure. CHF.
So if they have congestive heart failure, where's the blood going to back up to?
In the lungs.
In the lungs. Okay. So if the blood is backing up into the extremities, what kind of heart failure are they having?
It Lord, I know this. Is it pulmonary edema or
It's right-sided heart failure.
Right-sided heart failure. Then blood is backing up into the extremities. Okay. Left-sided heart failure, where's the blood backing up?
into the lungs?
Into where?
Into the lungs.
Into the lungs. That's
Mhm.
right. Because that's where it's coming from. So if those valves are failing and those chambers of the heart are losing strength and contractility, then that blood is going to start backing up in those places. So if you see somebody that has all of these extremity edema issues, you would suspect, I would strongly encourage you to suspect that they have some right-sided heart issues. If they're having congestive heart failure, if they're having pulmonary edema, if they're having fluid backing up into their lungs, then most likely they have some left-sided heart issues. Okay? Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about nerves or the spinal cord or any of those types of things, what system are we dealing with?
Central nervous system.
Okay, we're dealing, well, it's less specific than that, but it'll just be the nervous system. More specifically, if you go into this central nervous system, you're going to be dealing specifically with the brain and spinal cord. The nervous system deals with all of the nerves, transmitters, neurons throughout the whole entire body. So if you have a hard time understanding the nervous system, think of it as a road map. You guys look on Google Maps and you see all the roads that go across the state, big roads, little roads. That's kind of about the best analogy I could give you for the nervous system. The nerves run all through the body, and they just kind of spider out like a road map. So the brain is the control center, and it functions by receiving messages through those nerves and then sending messages. So it receives and sends messages based on the information that all the nerves are giving, sending up to it. So if your nerves are down in your feet or telling your brain that your feet are cold, then it's going to send, once the message gets up there to the brain, then it's going to send some messages back, which will eventually get to that point of inducing shivering through your body to try to warm up. Which body system deals with hormones?
Endocrine.
Endocrine. Does everybody know where their thyroid is located?
Mm-hmm. Your neck.
Right. It's in your neck on actually it's like a kind of shaped like a butterfly, so it's on both sides of your trachea. What does it do?
Regulate your metabolism.
Regulates metabolism. What else does
And
it do?
increase the heart rate and body temperature.
Okay. it has effects. It can have effects on heart rate and body temperature. Anything else?
Make you gain weight or lose weight.
Depending on whether it's working right or not. What else will it do?
And
Does anybody else know any other symptoms of when it's not working correctly?
can you get hair loss?
Fatigue, jittery.
Yes,
Hair loss?
hair loss. Anything else?
Fatigue, restlessness.
You get like Graves' disease with hypothyroidism.
Yep, all of these are true. Fatigue, restlessness, irritability. Graves' disease is something that comes out of that. Who's most affected by this? What type of people?
African American.
I was going to say, evidently, you and I are.
Uh,
Females.
who said that?
Females.
Sound like
Yep, females. They're the highest category. It does affect females and males. It does affect all races, but most people affected are females.
really?
Okay.
Isn't it Hashimoto's that causes the what is it, the thunderstorm, where it basically starts shutting down every single one of your systems?
Yes, Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease, and that is where your immune system will actually attack your thyroid and destroy it.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
I thought it was one of the things as a result of the thyroid, where it goes to the far extreme from being neglected for too long.
Yeah, that thyroid storm is a condition where it just kind of goes out of control really quickly. But most people are regulating this with medication because there are so many symptoms of general feeling bad, like you guys described. Weight loss or weight gain, depending on whether it's hypo or hyper, fatigue, irritability, hair loss. It does sound like I'm describing myself here. So what's the way to know if this thing is broken?
Blood work.
That's it.
Draw TSH.
Yep. The only way to know for sure is to do blood work. They look at 3 or 4 different things, and they'll come to that conclusion that it's either working right or it's overactive or underactive. But that is the problem for us in EMS, is that it does, especially in the underactive world, and it can work in the overactive world too. It causes problems with heart rate. So this thing, it can slow people's hearts down into the 40s and 50s, 40s, 30s on the hypo side, and on the hyper side, their heart rate can be quite tachycardic. So you could be looking, upwards of 130, 140. And of course, those will be the people that are skinny as a rail because their metabolism is through the roof, and they can eat anything they want and can't gain weight. So we can rule that out. For me, I definitely don't have hyperthyroid.
Me too.
What other body organs are in this endocrine system besides the thyroid?
Adrenal glands.
Okay, what do they do?
Secrete adrenaline,
Okay.
fight or flight. They increase the secretion of glucocorticoids,
Mm-hmm.
including steroids.
Yeah, it's a type of steroid. Okay. So you've got the adrenal glands, and they're producing your epinephrine, your norepinephrine. They're stimulated by the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So again, that control center from the brain is going to send these messages and tell these glands to produce more or produce less of those.
Your ovaries are also part of the endocrine
Okay, ovaries.
system. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And on the male side, it would be what?
Testicle.
Right. Okay, what other organs? We've got a couple more in this system.
The hypothalamus.
Okay.
Well, the hypothalamus is, I guess it secretes a couple hormones, but it's connected to the pituitary gland.
Right. So they work together.
And your pancreas.
Your pancreas, what does it do?
Mm-hmm. It regulates blood sugar levels. It creates insulin.
There you go.
And if it don't create insulin, then you'll be diabetic.
Absolutely. So you could be born this way with it not working, or it could at some point during your life decide to stop working. Or again, it's one of those things where it either works too little or works too much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the endocrine system has a lot of moving parts in it, and it controls a lot of functions in the body. A lot of those or most of those can be life altering if they fall out of that homeostasis range. So if the pancreas quits working, your body's blood sugar levels stop being maintained. So we have to maintain those externally in order to keep people alive. If the thyroid messes up, this could cause people to have slower, fast heart rates. It could cause a lot of metabolism issues with weight gain or weight loss, having again life effects on the body that have to be maintained externally. So a lot of stuff there in that system. That'll be good for you guys to dig into. What about digestion? The digestive system. What kind of things are we looking at there?
The stomach. No. Digestion. You're looking at the esophagus?
Well, first you're looking at saliva.
Oh, yeah.
What'd you say, Derek? I didn't hear you.
I said the first thing is going to be digestive as far as like in the mouth, like your teeth, your saliva and stuff like that starts from food.
Okay, so it starts at the mouth. This is with food entering the body. So we chew it up in the mouth. Saliva starts to moisten and loosen and break down. When we swallow, Demetria mentioned the esophagus. So when we swallow, food's going to travel through the esophagus. Where is it going?
Through the larynx to the stomach.
There you go. Down the esophagus into the stomach. Okay, that's where the big digestion takes place. The stomach acid that's in there, and it's going to break the food down. Where does it send it?
To the colon.
Before it gets there, where does it go?
Small
To the
intestine.
intestines.
Oh,
Right. Out of the stomach, it's going into the small intestines. And that's where the body gets all of its nutrients. So all the nutrients from the food absorbed through the small intestines, sent out to the body. Here's your energy. Go and do lots of work. All right. After the small intestines, where is it?
Large.
large intestine.
Large intestines. So pretty much the stuff that hits the large intestines is going to be waste product, and it's going to make its way through the large intestines, down through the colon and out of the body, right?
Yep.
What's the gallbladder do?
Secretes bile into the intestines.
For the purpose of what?
Break down.
Bile breaks down fats.
That's right. So if you know people that have had gallstones or had their gallbladder removed, then they should and alter their diet to a low-fat diet, because they no longer have that bile being introduced to help break down the fats. So if they eat a high fat content diet, what's going to happen to them?
Use the bathroom a lot.
Go right on to the bathroom.
Yeah, they're going to have an upset stomach, probably diarrhea. From the excessive fats. So if you know people that have had their gallbladder removed, most people, you probably won't see them eating those greasy cheeseburgers and things like that. Although it's not saying that they can't, but they may pay for it later. So what about the liver?
The liver does a lot of things.
In relation to the digestive system, what does it do?
All of the blood leaving the intestines goes directly to the liver, where it's filtered for the nutrients and to remove toxins.
Right. So it's basically a big filter. It removes toxins. This is why alcohol, when we consume large amounts of alcohol, it damages this liver, because the liver is filtering all of that alcohol out. So it's trying to keep it all right there, and that's why it becomes damaged. Talk about pancreas. All right. What are we Do you guys know what we're seeing a lot of as far as intestinal issues in medical problems?
GI bleeds.
GI bleeds,
And diverticulosis and litis.
diverticulitis. Yeah. Are you guys hearing more and more people being diagnosed with Crohn's now?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. More so than we used to. Any reason? Can you guys think of any reasons why we're having these intestinal issues now?
Diet.
Diet, mainly. You can thank the fast food restaurants for that. Okay, let's talk about the nephro system again. What's the nephro system?
Kidneys.
Yeah, the urinary system. What are the components of the urinary system?
Kidneys and the urinary tract.
Kidneys,
And the bladder.
So let's talk about the kidneys. What's their function?
The filter.
Filter the urine.
maintain fluid and electrolyte balance, blood pressure, filter waste products from the blood.
There you go, Keith. You're on it. This is that homeostasis feature.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do they filter waste product, but it also has the ability to maintain blood pressure, and the body will take all of that fluid in moments of dehydration. This is why when people are dehydrated, they don't go to the bathroom, because all of that fluid that's moving into the kidneys is actually being rerouted. Instead of sending it to the bladder, it's going back into the body during dehydration periods. So a lot of functions there with the kidneys, and it just depends on how the body's feeling right now. If it's maintaining that homeostasis and we're doing good, all the other systems are good, it's going to filter it and send it on to the bladder, where it'll be let go as a waste product. But if things start to get out of line, then that all of that fluid in the kidneys will be rerouted. So we have the bladder, we have the urethra, which is the exit tube. So male or female, who's more susceptible to UTIs?
Females.
Females.
Females. Reason being?
They don't wipe front to back.
That's not the reason. I mean, that may facilitate.
Is it
What's
because
the
of
reason?
more exposure?
What's that?
Is it because it's like more exposed?
Nope. It's simply a matter of length.
Oh.
Okay. So female urethras are much shorter than male urethras,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that shortness, coupled with your other theories and hygiene processes, that shortness of the urethra makes it more susceptible, because when bacteria is introduced, it doesn't have that far to travel to get into the bladder. So that is the reason that they get them much more than men. What about reproductive systems?
You want to know the parts?
Sure.
Penis,
Okay.
fallopian tubes, and then you got your uterus and your cervix, the vagina.
Okay, let's start with the females then, because their system is a little more complex. Where does this all begin?
At the vagina.
Ovaries.
At the ovaries. Yeah, let's start at the ovaries. Eggs are produced, hormones are produced,
They go down the fallopian tube.
and the eggs
They
travel
go into
out.
the uterus. They go from the ovaries down the fallopian tubes into the uterus, and if they don't get inseminated or attached, then the blood lining and
Cycle.
everything washes out.
Which is your cycle.
There you go. So, you hear a lot about ectopic pregnancies.
Pregnancy in the tubes.
Nope,
Okay.
that's false. That's anywhere anywhere that it plants beside the uterus.
Anywhere a fertilized egg is outside of the uterus.
It doesn't have to be in the fallopian tubes, correct?
Right, but my question is, where else would it be?
I don't know. You told me last that it wasn't just the pregnancy in the tubes, Cliff.
I know that, but by definition, the definition says it's a fertilized egg outside of the uterus. But between the ovary and the uterus, the only thing is the fallopian tube. So I don't know, but by definition, it's just outside of the uterus.
So you told me
A
wrong.
lot of people assume it's in the fallopian tube, and I would say that's a safe assumption because I don't know where else it could be.
So with our modern day science, when they do the male got impregnated, he's having an ectopic pregnancy because he doesn't have a uterus.
By definition, then yes.
And he's going to have a C-section because it's not coming out of his urethra.
Yeah, well, it doesn't come out of the urethra on the woman either.
Well, yeah. Well, he doesn't have a birth canal.
Yes,
He's only
that's
got
true.
one.
You're just crossing all kinds of lines now.
Yeah.
So the male reproductive system, a little more simple.
Got the testicle
Yeah, let's
or
start there.
testes,
Yep.
the epididymis, which I don't know the purpose of the epididymis. What's the purpose of the epididymis, Cliff?
Well, I'm going to go with you haven't read the chapter yet, have you?
But I still don't understand the purpose.
Does anybody want to help her out with the epididymis?
Come on, Derek. Keith.
Who's Googling it?
I believe it's just part of the pathway that semen follows from the seminal vesicles through the rest of the tract. It's like the next step. I don't know exactly what it does, but I know it's part of the process.
Thank you, Mark.
So you're on it, Mark. That is it's a tube. The epididymis is a tube, and it stores sperm and transports it from the testicles. So, I guess that is the beginning point of it leaving the testicles there. Once it leaves out of that, goes into the vas deferens and on its way out. So what's the most problematic part of the male reproductive system?
Most problematic.
Mm-hmm.
For older men, it's the prostate.
There you go. And what's the problem with it?
It enlarges.
Yeah. So as people get older, it'll swell, and it'll enlarge and stay a little too large. Starts cutting off flow from other areas. So it can actually shut off it'll pinch off the urethra so that they actually cannot urinate.
Oh.
And there's a nice, if you look in your book on 198, there's a nice drawing of both systems, but you'll be able to see and understand in that drawing. If you imagine it enlarging, you can see how it would shut off the flow. All right. I know Caitlin has joined us tonight, and she's turned off right now, but if she is paying attention, I just wanted to give her a minute to interject here anything that we've talked about so far in either chapter. If she has anything that I've missed and wants to go over, if you can hear Caitlin, or if you're still with us, do you have anything that you'd like to throw in at this time?
No, I think you've pretty much covered the gist of it. I think most of like the directional planes, things like that, y'all just gonna have to read and familiarize yourself with those, just because it's more reading and applying it to what you know. But no, I think everything's been covered pretty much exceptionally well.
All right, thank you. Anybody in the crowd here, do you guys have any questions or anything specific that you want to talk about or discuss?
Right now.
Cliff,
So
I do know that because Brian Paul is here tonight working. I'm at work. He said that he's still trying to log on to FISDAP to input or choose Perquimans as a site, and it's still not showing Perquimans as an option for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
They know about this, and they're supposed to be fixing it. I don't know what their hang up is with getting that choice put in there. I've talked to Cameron about it, and she says when she pulls it up, it shows it as a choice, but it's not getting out to everybody. So I don't know what the issue is, but I will make a note and send them another message on it to get to that. Thank you.
Okay.
I do want to draw you guys' attention to the assignments this week. you do have a paper to write on the human body system. So that assignment is in my courses, and the instructions are in there as well, and it tells you which body systems you have to deal with and how to correlate those together. So make sure you work on that, as well as the online quizzes. And the big thing is the module exam next week.
Is the exam online or is it a written?
So far, they've all been online in my courses, but honestly, I can't tell you because it's not there yet. They have one more week to get it loaded, and they're using all of their days.
I was just looking at the body systems assignment. It says a minimum of 2 pages. Is that single space or double space? I've got to ask.
It's double spaced.
Okay. I guess that is
It should be
APA
more
format.
than that, actually. I mean, 2 pages is not going to be a lot double spaced, but
Yeah.
you guys should have no trouble meeting that.
Cliff,
Yes.
what's the deadline to have FISDAP and the extra, the other FISDAP? I mean, the other medical. Let me see. How much was that?
The drop dead deadline for FISDAP is when you start your clinical time in the hospital, because you cannot do your clinical shifts without FISDAP. In the meantime, if you don't have it, you're falling behind with your lab shifts because you have to log every single lab shift that we do. So if you don't have it yet, or I know you're having some issues getting it switched over, Walter's working with you. I saw some email traffic on that. So
Yeah, he emailed me about that.
if you don't have it, I encourage you to take notes in the labs because you're going to have to go back and backlog all of these lab shifts that we're doing. So right now we've only had one lab so far, but next week is lab number 2, and then it goes every week from there. So, but by week 6 or 7, you guys are going to be cut loose for the hospital. So you cannot go into the hospital without it because none of that time will count. So let's do a little review before we get out of here. Muscles in the body, what do they do?
Help with flexibility. And strength.
More specifically, what do they do?
There are means for movement.
How so?
by contracting and acting on the bones as levers.
Okay. So ligaments and tendons. Somebody tell me the difference between ligaments and tendons. And what they do.
A ligament connects a bone to a bone, and a tendon connects a muscle to a bone.
Okay. So one connects a bone to a bone, one connects a muscle to a bone. What about cartilage?
Connective tissue that supports the skeleton in many areas.
What areas does cartilage appear in?
Like the knees,
Okay.
joints, the ribs.
Joints, that's where the
sternum.
cartilage is. Joints, cartilage is like a cushion between the bones. And you'll mostly see those in joints. The heart functions, the power source for the heart is electricity. Does anybody know where the electrical source is located and what it's called?
The synaptic
Is it the SA node?
The
SA node, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the primary
Synaptic node.
electrical source. Where is it located physically?
It's in the septum between the atria.
What's that?
It's in the septum between the atria, like the dividing portion between the left and right atrium.
It's a vena cava, superior vena cava.
The SA node should be located in the upper part of the right atrium.
Atrium.
So if the SA node as the primary electrical source starts to malfunction, what's the backup electrical source?
AV node.
You know,
The AV node. And where is that located?
In the bundle of his.
Not quite.
The AV node.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was confused with the AV node and the SA node. The AV node is that's in the septum between
Right.
the ventricles, I believe.
Not quite in the septum. It's still in the right atrium, but it's in the lower part of the right atrium. So the SA node is up high in the upper part of the right atrium, and the AV node is in the lower part of the right atrium.
Oh, okay. I see the figure now in the book.
There's a nice
Page 176.
Yeah, 176 has a nice diagram of it. So from there, so that's your primary electrical source and your backup electrical source. If both of those fail, what's the next electrical source? Anybody have an idea?
CPR. No, I'm kidding.
No, not yet.
Is it the Purkinje fibers?
Not yet.
Okay.
There's an electrical source before those.
Is it the automaticity?
Nope.
The AV junction.
So the bundle of His is an electrical transmitter,
Hmm.
and then the Purkinje fibers would be the last source of electricity. So from top to bottom, there's electrical sources through the heart, and there's multiple options for it to maintain electricity. Do know that each time it moves down, what do you think's happening with the heart rate?
It's going up.
It's decreasing.
Yeah, it's decreasing.
Oh,
Every
thought it was
time
going to compensate.
So the SA node being the primary electrical source, where do we expect the heart rate to be a normal heart rate with the SA node firing correctly?
80 to 100.
60 to 100.
60 to 100. That's the normal range. So 60 to 100. So
Mm.
everything working normal with the SA node, everything going great. Somewhere between 60 and 100 is where our heart rate would be. If that SA node messed up and we switched over to started with the AV node, anybody have an idea of what a heart rate would look like?
50 to 70? 50 to 80? I don't know.
40 to 60.
40 to 60. Yeah,
What was that?
40 to 60.
Medic 2, respond 122, Swains Lane, 122, Swains Lane, 69-year-old female.
Yeah, thanks. And then as it goes down to the through the bundle of His and down to the Purkinje fibers, if we're having to do that, you're probably looking at a heart rate 20s, 30s, really, really slow. So those people are going to be in really bad shape. All right. Anybody have any questions for tonight's sessions?
I know the chapter is pretty broad. Is there anywhere like in specific you would want us to focus our studying?
I'm hoping that you already have a pretty good understanding of the human body from your EMT class. I don't have a specific narrowing for you. I can tell you that if a body system is mentioned, you should be able to identify the function of the system, the parts of the system, what organs are involved, or if there's a specific anatomical location, something like that. We don't expect you to be an expert on it. We'll make you that way in a little bit, but we do want some broad, generic this is what the system does. These are the parts of it. That sort of thing.
Okay.
As far as as far as structure goes, the skeletal system, you should be able to identify a lot of the main bones of the body, a lot of the bones that we're going to deal with. I don't expect you to have to, to be able to recite all 206, but I do expect you to have a good understanding. And if we start talking about certain areas of the body or certain body parts, then you should be able to know that we're there and be able to keep pace with us. Again, those two names are going to be key for you because we'll interchange those in our discussions. So like with all the bones, a lot of the bones have two names. So if you're learning the terminology, use those medical terms for those bones. This week's going to take a little work from you. This is a big chapter. It's got a lot of meat in it, so it's going to take you a little while to get through it. Anybody have anything else?
No.
All right, guys. Good seeing you guys, and good discussions tonight. The rest of the week, you've got your assignments. Don't forget to pick your lab site for next week. So chapter 3, you guys should be working on your medications now. So we'll start discussing those and going over those next week. And we'll make sure everybody's got the right info on all of those. So starting next week, we'll be going through your list, and then you've got the paper, you've got the chapters to get through, you've got a module exam to prepare for. So should be enough to give you some good things to do this week.
Nice, easy week.
Yeah, piece of cake.
That paper would have been nice over the extended break, like Thanksgiving, I think.
Oh, it won't be that bad. It won't be that bad. You'll get it. If nobody has any other specifics, then we're a little bit early, but we'll get on out of here.
Oh.
All right.
Have a good week.
You guys have a good night and a good week, and we'll see you next Monday or Tuesday then.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.